Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's midday weather outlook for the southern region, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, since we last talked about the southern region, this is the total amount of precipitation that has accumulated, and we can see the overall pattern setting up nicely here. There's an upper level ridge we've been talking about for quite some time sitting here over the southwest. The southwestern monsoon is cranking. We have had some localized flooding here in Arizona and New Mexico, but as that flow has come around here, some extremely heavy rainfall coming into the northern part of the southern region. So I'm talking about Kansas and Missouri here. You can see pockets in there where we've seen over 8 to 10 inches of rainfall. Meanwhile, a front has been draped into this area, and the boundary's kind of stalled out right over here in the last 24 hours, and we've seen quite a bit of thunderstorm activity there as well, including several severe reports moving up into the mid-Atlantic. Flooding in parts of Louisiana, extremely heavy rainfall borne on some tropical moisture that's moving over parts of Florida, and the sea breeze that's been going there, just producing some epic thunderstorm activity for Florida, but that's something Florida's quite used to. Just to show you how active these storms have been, in the last 24 hours we've seen across this particular region here of North and South America 384,000 lightning strikes, and a lot of that activity centered right down here in parts of the southeast, and then the storms curling around just like this. So very, very active last couple of days here in terms of thunderstorm activity. We still have out right now, this particular region has flood watches and some flood warnings in it, and you're going to see here in the next few moments that that's an area that we're going to be watching for a lot more rainfall coming, because that pattern is having a hard time breaking down in the near term. Again, parts of Texas, parts of Oklahoma is going to miss out on this entirely as the flow kind of goes around just like this. So this corridor, again, is a corridor we're tracking here over the coming days. And this map, what you're looking at here, shows you the next 10 days from the operational European model is showing a lot more precipitation coming, most of it in the near term here. But we have to try to understand what is going to be going on down here in the southeast in terms of picking up precipitation, because you do see quite a bit of thunderstorm activity showing up here in the forecast. And you can also see we have two different kind of pieces here that are going to be coming out of the tropics that we need to discuss as well. Overall, Texas, a lot of Texas does look hot and relatively dry compared to average. Doesn't mean we can't get these storms that pop on the afternoon heat in the coming days, but the upper level flow pattern is practicing avoidance with Texas as we move here into the middle part of the month of August. So let's kind of talk about this by first starting off in the Atlantic. In the animation you're watching here, just looks back over the last day or so, showing you the activity we've got in the Atlantic right now. And there are some more robust waves coming off of Africa, but really the ones we were watching most carefully, we kind of watched this again here. The systems that were moving through the Lesser Antilles up toward Florida now. Yep, quite a bit of active convection in this area, but nothing organized. And the other system, which was sitting here moving toward the Lesser Antilles, has kind of lost its steam, losing some upper level support, quite a bit of dry and dusty air nearby, and it's moving into a slightly higher wind shear environment. Even though these two systems are kind of waning in their influence, we can see that their projected paths. Over on the left, I have the GFS showing kind of the story we've been telling all week, with this system kind of curving here to the north around the more large subtropical ridge sitting here. And the European ensemble, now through day 4 through 7, picking up the probability of this becoming a tropical depression, has lowered those probabilities in this area. So again, it's a very similar story to what we painted all week in our weather videos, and still this one's a relatively slow mover we're watching. But I want to just make sure you know that what's following this, this is an infrared satellite image here from Meteosat, and we can still see quite a bit of active convection moving between basically the Saharan desert and then the tropical rainforest. This sub-Saharan area right in through here, called the Sahel, is a very active place for tropical convection, and that's where many of our hurricanes are born through the middle and end of August, and then of course through September and October. So we're just going to keep watching it carefully in the meantime, but thankfully these next two systems are going to be steered away from the United States. Now, when we think about what's really going on with this pattern, I want to show you a great video. This kind of went viral in the day on Thursday here, and this is showing some glacial melts and the runoff we get on Greenland. And it is normal this time of year to get, of course, ice melt on Greenland, but it's been certainly accelerated this year simply due to the fact that we have, if you kind of look over here at the map that's on the right, we've featured throughout the entire month of July here much above average heights sitting over much of Greenland here. And that particular setup has been one where it's just been much warmer than average because of this. It's also been the reason why we've seen some heat moving into parts of Western Europe and much colder than average over, this part of the Russian wheat belt getting here into Western Russia. So it's had a big influence on our pattern overall, and I want to show you just what it looks like here in terms of the ice melt on Greenland. It's going to be, you'll probably see it quite a bit in the news either today or tomorrow. Well, where's this pattern going in the near term? Well, we've had quite a bit of model variation recently with this. And what I want to do is I want to kind of play this out for you and show you a couple of the main features that I'm watching. Clicking it, letting it get going through the weekend, we're going to have this dominant ridge that will be sitting here out west. And that's going to focus a lot of the thunderstorm activity in a corridor that runs right in through this sector here. And it's going to be pushing into this broader trough sitting into the southeast, all right? Meanwhile, the flow is quite stagnant out in the Pacific because of this high over low setup. And that'll be important to see how this moves the Canadian storm track. See it right in through here, how deep these troughs are able to get here in Canada and then eventually over to the northeast, and how flat this ridge becomes out west. So as I take you out here into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week, it's interesting that ridge, this high over low pattern here, has blocked things up and allowed for, much more cooler air to be invading here into the parts of the northeast. Now, normally when I see this, what I think about is the leading edge of this typically has a cold front sitting on it. And I'll be watching for where that boundary kind of lingers here across the south, because it can sometimes get oriented west to east in this area and be a source of constant thunderstorm activity, while on the back side over here, because we're so close to the ridge, we might miss out on it in parts of Texas and Oklahoma. And that's really the setup that we're seeing as we progress here into the 8th, 9th, and 10th, 11th of the month of August. You see that pattern? It's a very interesting take on what we've seen. And we just come right back over to this high over low pattern. We call this a negative EPO pattern sitting here in the North Pacific Ocean. And that's one that's sets things up downstream to be quite volatile and tend to feature what you see right in through here. So why I show you that is because as we take a look at what this means in terms of precipitation, that's really going to govern how it flows. So starting off at 6 a.m. on Friday, just taking you through midday on Saturday, this is the high-resolution rapid refresh model picking up on precipitation. So once again, we see the same corridor right in through here where we've got the flood watches and warnings out, getting a lot more rain. Monsoonal thunderstorm activity, Arizona and New Mexico, but it seems to be largely missing most of Texas. Maybe some storms coming through late tonight in the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma. See them for showing up there. So we'll watch that very carefully throughout the day. So keep an eye on the radar if you're in Amarillo to Lubbock. Meanwhile, over the southeast, where we still kind of have this lingering frontal boundary plus this tropical surge of moisture from that first tropical disturbance we were watching. Why these scattered showers and storms? Still the name of the game. I'm hoping that the models have this accurate, because if we can get the showers and storms to ride right up here along the coast, this is an area that has shown up very dry in the last 30 days or so. So some coastal precipitation for the Carolinas would be outstanding. All right, but let's see where this is going in a little bit longer term forecast from the European ensemble. We're just going to get this started, take it right out here to Saturday morning where we saw the previous model runs end, so right there. And what I want you to notice is that at this particular time, our Canadian storm track, each time a system goes through Canada, it brings in a front. You kind of saw it there with the deeper troughs that move in. And I think we're going to be watching right along this corridor a boundary that lingers, that's going to be bringing in just a lot of flashes of green, which tells us that it's going to be popping with thunderstorms most afternoons. In the near term, we're watching again the ridge riding flow bringing in the heavier rain here. This is starting off Saturday afternoon. So getting into Saturday evening and the overnight hours and Saturday into Sunday morning. Now watch, this is Sunday afternoon and Sunday evening. See it popping again right here? So this will be an area that's got plenty of Gulf moisture. There's actually a boundary that goes clear up into a storm system that's way off the northeast coast of the United States, and that boundary is still sitting in this area as we progress into Sunday evening and Monday morning. So again, Monday afternoon, watching the storms pop again in this area. Next low pressure system goes through Canada. So let's kind of keep going here. So this is now Monday evening, again on the heat of the day and on that feed of tropical moisture. Just going to continue to see our daily convective activity here. Getting out to Tuesday morning. This is now Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening. At this particular point, higher atmospheric pressure will be pushing in out ahead of our next frontal boundary, which will be stretched right in through here. So it could mean, a little bit drier spell here as we get into midweek next week. But then you'll notice by the time we get to next Wednesday night and into Thursday, the new boundary from this low pressure system is draped across the same area. So imagine if you were looking at your local forecast here, you're just going to see a probability of seeing storms every day in this area. So some locally heavier rainfall amounts in the southeast and mid-south out of each one of these boundaries that just kind of sits here and produces some excellent thunderstorm activity. But if you've been watching Texas, you're kind of missing out on a lot of this as the monsoonal flow keeps going right around Texas and keeps this particular corridor quite wet as we stretch this all the way out into next Friday evening. Now that's about as far out as I dare go with giving you these precipitation forecasts because we've seen a lot of inconsistency in the week 2 weather forecasts. But overall, if we just use the 51-member ensemble package from the European, we do see that across much of the southeast, near average precipitation, and yes, the GFS shows you dry, but the GFS is not picking up properly on the daily convective activity. We then see that this corridor is the wet corridor around that ridge initially, and then you still see more storms there later as the trough broadens out. And again, there will be pockets in Texas that miss out on a lot of this precipitation, but some places will be getting some local thunderstorms. And the European ensemble also sees the 2 separate storm tracks here from the 2 systems that we've been watching for a while. And thankfully, over the next 10 days, it's not seeing too much else in terms of the development of any tropical system. So it's important to kind of put this all together in aggregate and see where the models are taking us over the next 10 to 15 days here in this map. And when we talk temperatures, let's start off in the day here on Friday. Triple-digit heat here. You're going to see a sharp gradient just to the north of Oklahoma here as the cloud cover and the cooler weather due to the rainfall sneaks in. Got some mid-90s down here in the Gulf Coast states, and then getting over here to the East Coast where we're expecting some cloud cover and a lot of thunderstorm activity. We're looking on the cooler side of things. Pressing play and getting us out here. This again Friday. See how things change into Saturday. So look at the cool down we got right in through this area. That's all cloud cover driven. That's due to the heavy rainfall in that area. Meanwhile, where we're much warmer and drier here, getting the upper 90s, lower 100s in Texas. Now pushing into Sunday. Sunday is probably going to be the coolest day for much of the southern region as we look out, because already starting on Monday we get the rebuilding of the heat back into Texas and Oklahoma, mid-90s across that region. Getting out to next Tuesday, very similar story here. We seem to be avoiding the serious heat across much of the southern region we had been seeing. But by the time we get you next Wednesday, a lot of mid to upper 90s in Texas, lower 90s across the Gulf Coast, and then mid 90s here as we get back over toward, basically Alabama, Georgia, and then getting up to the Carolina coast. So that seems to be the pattern we are in the near term. So we're not seeing extreme heat except for the much above average temperatures in parts of Texas. We can see that better if we just look over at the next 5 days in aggregate. So the same story played out very well here with the heat under the broadening ridge out west, where we have the cool down here. That's due to cloud cover. So much above average temperatures here and cooler than average here as this trough moves in. Speaking of that trough, look out here in the days 5 through 10. But the only place that stays on the warmer side of things, much warmer than average, is over here in Texas and New Mexico, much closer to average as you get down here into the southeast. Once we get out to the days 10 through 15, this is when that broader trough feature really starts to invade the Great Lakes states, and we're going to go back much closer to seasonal temperatures across much of the southern region, with the northern part of the southern region possibly seeing a degree or two below average. So this is a pattern that is going to resist bringing in extreme heat to the eastern half of North America, and it's important to kind of pick up on that as we go ahead and wrap up this forecast video. So I hope you all have a great weekend, and we will talk to you again next week, and we'll make sure that we analyze over the weekend how all of these patterns trend and change to give you the best information possible. Thank you, and talk to you again soon.